Good evening, everybody. My name is Fitzraven, and many of you know me as a stamp scribe, a cipher, and that is indeed what I do with some of my time, a craft that I am deeply passionate about and in love with, and grateful for the privilege of doing such holy work. And in the other part of my time, what I do is I be deeply with people. What does that mean? Sometimes I call it coaching, sometimes I call it journeying with, sometimes I call it creating, because so much of what I do with people is create who they are, their sense of identity, their sense of their self-perception proactively, creatively, and then as an extension of that, results that they'd love in the actual world through courses of action. And in that process of creating, and particularly I'm very focused on creating one's self-perception, what I like to call the way a person constitutes himself, the language that makes up the person's self-identification, their who they are, their how they see themselves. And the reason why I like to put so much focus on that area is because it's really the highest leverage point, because how a person sees themselves and how a person views themselves and how a person identifies ends up informing what they see in the world as possible or impossible. And that ends up governing the actions that occur to them as available to take or not available to take. And those actions it ends up governing the results that they're able to create in their life and in the world or not. So because of that, creating the self-identity, creating the self-image, creating the self-perception, proactively, consciously, choosing the language that I use through which to think of and speak of myself is absolutely crucial. For example, just the way I opened this video, I am a stam scribe. I am grateful for this work. It's work that I'm in love with. This is language that I'm intentionally using because it wasn't always like that. And there was a point in time in my career where I was stressed, I felt pressured, I was anxious, I was distressed about the fees that I was getting. I was trying to cram in more work to try to cover to make up for the low fees that I was being compensated. I was kind of in a kind of state of victimhood. That's how it all became by default. But through a conscious, committed, creative process, I've changed my whole way of being with my scribing, with my Saphros. And so now I speak in a very distinct way about the work that I do, both because that's how I experience it now, but also as a result of having spoken that way, speaking that way helped me expand and adjust and reorganize the way I was being with it, how much I was doing it, how much I was being compensated. And that shifted my whole energy and allowed me to do it and allows me to do it from a place of so much more love and passion and open-heartedness and spirit. So a lot of people have heard and hear about affirmations, declarations, think positive, speak positive, sounds like pop psychology. Certainly, rah rah coaches like to talk like that a lot. Just speak differently, just think differently. And of course, if a person is trying to think differently or speak differently when they're secretly still believing and still thinking and still speaking their non-useful ideas, then they end up creating a fight and they end up entrenching more deeply their non-useful ideas. So there's actually a distinct process that I do with people to help people dissolve the grip that non-useful ideas and non-useful judgments and condemnations and non-useful identities have on them, so that they can access their creative core and bring forth something with greater intention and creativity and something that's more useful and more expensive. But the idea itself, that the way we think and the way we speak is actually impactful on our reality. Okay? In other words, the idea that, let's say I have a poor memory. The question is not really whether or not that's true or false. The question is that useful or not useful? This is an idea that the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, writes about explicitly. I'm actually in the middle of drawing his portrait. That's an unfinished work that I'm in the middle of. Very proud of it. And making a promise to all my viewers, Lena there, that when it's complete, I'll show it to you again. So this is a very, very interesting point, that very often we have a certain condemnation, judgment, negative belief, worldview, self-perception, identity, and we believe that it's true. Now, we don't necessarily think it has to stay that way forever. Maybe we believe that we could change it, but we believe it's true. And so often, you know, we're a very analytic community. We study a lot the Gemara, the Talmud. We think deeply. So the question of whether or not it's true is very, very important to a lot of us, right? Is it true? Is it true? It's true that I have a bad memory. It's true. And then when it comes to creating an affirmation or a declaration, that would be like, no, I have a great memory. I retain everything that I learn. We recoil and we balk because it's not true. It's not true. So we revolve a lot around this kind of conceptual question of whether something is true or not. And we completely overlook the actual impact that speaking and thinking that thing has on us in the direct experience of speaking it and thinking it. We skip right over the direct experience of speaking that. Is it expansive or is it constricting? And we just become very focused on our projection of whether or not it's true. And that's actually a mistake. Whether or not it's true is actually not as important as looking at how is it impacting me to think this and speak this and identify in this way. What is my experience, my direct experience in thinking and speaking this? And this is a very powerful, powerful idea and insight and opening that the Frierdiker Rebbe creates in this letter. Someone wrote to him that he doesn't yet see success in his learning of Yoreh De'ah, which is a relatively complicated section of the Jewish law. And he complained to the Rebbe that he's forgetful. So the Rebbe instructs him in the proper order for how to learn in a systematic way, in a structured way, so that the ideas can get stacked one on top of the other in a way that gets integrated and not just collapsed. And then on the fourth line, he says like this, Ubedover tiva zikaron, regarding your memory, the quality of your memory. Like all expressions of consciousness, all of your faculties, all of your spiritual capabilities, hu tolui bechizuk hamachshava. It is directly contingent and dependent on the strengthening and the solidifying and the stability of your thinking about it. And this strengthening of thought depends on the person alone. If a person engages in thinking of, I have a poor memory, this thought itself causes the weakness of memory. Isn't that interesting? So most people, when they think and hear themselves saying, I have poor memory, they're very attached to that because they think it's true. And they're oblivious to the actual causality in thinking that and speaking that. They're unaware of the way in which thinking that and speaking that is intensifying the very thing that they're thinking and speaking. Is actually creating it and expanding it. That's why I like to focus on the question of when someone has a negative or non-useful judgment of themselves or of anything or of anyone, is it useful? Is it expansive or is it constricting? Is it useful or is it non-useful? Is it empowering or is it disempowering? Because believe it or not, we actually have that power. The person has the power to scaffold and strengthen and solidify their thought and choose the language that they identify with, the language that they think about themselves, thereby bringing about the thing that they're holding in their thought. And if a person engages in the thinking that he has a good memory, this itself causes a strengthening of the memory. This is a natural law that God implanted in the nature of the power of thought more than all other powers, more than all other capabilities. The power of thought has the capacity to literally strengthen or weaken the very thing that the person is holding in their thought. So anything that is a koyach hanefesh, anything that is a spiritual power, a spiritual function, a psychological function, an emotional function, an aspect of who you are and who you be, how you choose to constitute in language and think of yourself in that context is actually what you then experience as that context. And so the question is not whether it's true or false that I have a good memory or bad memory, I'm a good guy or a nice guy, I'm a procrastinator or I keep a schedule, I'm smart or I'm stupid, I'm open-spirited, I'm closed, I'm trusting, I'm distrusting, you name it, the gamut of qualities and characteristics that constitute a person's identity and a person's spiritual, psychological, and emotional makeup. Every single bit of that, if you bring conscious, creative intention to how you identify, to how you think about yourself, how you speak about yourself, to your spouse, to your friends, to others, it doesn't matter. That actually is a lever that you hold in your hand. That actually is your highest leverage point for bringing forth the identity and the experience of yourself that you actually want. Be strong in your mind and in your thinking. That you have a good memory. And in a short time, with God's help, your memory will improve. If you would like to be in a conversation for creating your life, for creating the identity that you manifest and that you express in the world, rather than just allowing it to default and allowing it to unconsciousness and allowing it to just be the product of the opposite of intentionality. If you'd like to go deeper with any of this, creating your self-perception, creating the languaging that you're using as an access point for action, as an opening for results, for the fulfillment of your purpose, of your mission, for the fullness of who you're meant to be, please reach out. I'd love to be in conversation with you. Thank you for receiving this. I love you all.